Good day everyone, my name is Jonathan Bueno from Peer Tutor Society, and today we're going to be talking about Structs. Well, what is Structs? A good way to think about Structs is to think about arrays. We all know that an array is a group of elements with the same data structure, or data type. Now that we know that, what's the similarity between arrays and structs? Well, structs are also a group of elements, however they don't have to be the same data type. So you can have a struct that has a string in it, or a character, an integer, or a float, or whatever that you want, just as long as it's logical within the program. So today we're going to be talking about how to initialize and how to deal with structs in general. First, how do we initialize a struct? Well, now I have here a simple initialization of a struct called student with members. These are called members. Members' first name, last names, nickname, sex, and age. Notice how these three members, first name, last name, nickname, are strings, and then sex is a character and age is an integer. That just reinforces my point earlier that structs don't have to have the same data structure, or data type rather. Okay, so this type of initialization of a struct is the type that you're probably going to see a lot in implementations of code, because it is very versatile, and this could serve as a template for your structs in the future. So how do we deal with this now that we have a struct? How do we implement it? After you have your struct, you go to your main, and then this is how you implement a struct. Similar to how you're going to be initializing a variable, you need the data type struct student. This is the data type of your struct variable, and then this is the variable name. If you want to have multiple instances of the struct student, you can have multiple variable names in one line, similar to how you code in non-structs variable. Anyway, so I already have my code here. Let's go through them one by one. So my code will list student information based on the given declarations. So right now I'm assigning 1 to first name, the first name member of stud1 struct. Take note that this is how you access each member of a struct. You list the variable name of the struct stud1, and then followed by the period operator, and then the member name. Take note, member name is located here at your struct declaration. So now that we have that, we can do the same for last name, De La Cruz for the last name, and then JP for nickname. We're using the function strcpy because we're dealing with strings. For sex and age, similarly, we can just equate them to, or assign them a variable or a value to their member. And now we print first name. This is how you're going to print it. treat this as a normal variable, just with this unique syntax. So take note of this format of structs. Now if you print it, I think we should delete this first. If we execute this, it will result in this. So student information, first name 1, we specified it here that the first name is 1, last name is De La Cruz, and then nickname is JP, sex M, and then age 18. So all of that is initialized here. Now what if we want multiple students, right? A classroom would not have only one student. Well, in special cases, but most of the time, and you might be in a classroom with multiple students. What if we have multiple students? So let's try to initialize stud2. It's going to be the same. The code will be the same, except that now you're accessing the struct named stud2. So it will have a different set of first name, a different set of last name, and nickname, and sex and age. So all of that you have to initialize differently, or not really you have to, but do take note that since this is a different struct as stud1, they have, or the values that you assigned to stud1 will not carry on with stud2. Okay, for here I initialize John and then Wayne for last name, John nickname, male 21. If we run this, I think it should run without complications. Yeah, this is stud1, and then this is stud2. First name John, last name Wayne, nickname John. So that's the first type of initialization of structs. You have the struct here, a tag name, and then the list of members. There are different types of initialization. In this type, you now have no tag name, so notice the difference. Struct student, here is just a struct. No tag name, meaning it's unnamed. The struct is unnamed. But you have this. What does this mean? This is an instance of a struct, specifically this struct. That might be a bit confusing. Well, to clarify, what we're doing here in this line of code, we're initializing stud1 as a struct student variable. That's basically the same as using this syntax for declaring or initializing your struct. So what does that imply to your code? That means that you don't have to use this anymore. Let's add stud2 here. Stud2. Yep. So you can have these what I mean by that is you can have multiple initializations in one line by using this syntax. So now you don't have to initialize a variable name into your structure, into main, because it's already declared during the initialization of the struct. So now if we run this, it should run exactly as before, even though we deleted this line of code. Now there's more. It does not stop there. Now this is just basically like the permutation of these two, tag name and then instance name. Now we have an initialization where you have a tag name and an instance name. So how does this affect your code? Since there's a tag name here, that means that this struct can be initialized in main. The problem with this syntax is that you cannot initialize it in main because there's no tag name. This is an unnamed structure. So you're going to be relying on these instances throughout your code. But what if you want more, right? That's where the tag name comes in. And then in this scenario, you can also have an instance name under the tag name. So since stud1 is already initialized here, but stud2 is not, we can do something like this. We only initialize stud2, but we leave stud1 initialized during the declaration of the struct. So if we run this, it should result in the same output. Now, since we have a initialization where all tag name and instance name are present, now we have none present. Since we don't have a tag name and we don't have an instance name, this means that this variable or this struct is an unnamed struct and you cannot use it in your code. You have to have an instance name here so that you can use it in the code. So if you run this, there will be a warning. Well, not this warning. Let's comment this out first. There'll be a warning. It will work, it will run, but the warning persists. Unnamed struct / union that defines no instances. So this struct, even though that it's in the code, you cannot use it. Yeah, this doesn't really have much practicality on its own, but if you combine it with concepts such as type def, you might have a good concept in your hands. But generally, this instance or this type of initializations of structs would suffice in your machine projects. With that, thank you everyone for listening to my tutor video. I hope you've learned about structs and how to initialize them. If you have any more inquiries, please just message the channel. Thank you so much and have a great day.